Okay, we've got a lot to talk about when it comes to the case of Lindsay Shiver, the Bahama mama who was accused of putting out a murder for hire plot against her husband, Robert Shiver. Well, now the Daily Mail is coming out with an explosive article. Robert claims that he caught his 37-year-old wife with an 18-year-old last year in 2022 in their home in the Bahamas. And do you know what allegedly gave her away? Her Apple Watch. It would not be the first time that an Apple Watch has given people away. You know, sometimes when that activity gets going at 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. at the same time, and you might get an alert that so-and-so and so-and-so finished their workout at the exact same time at 2:30 a.m., well, you can probably predict that they weren't jogging. Now, I don't know if that's how Robert found out, but let's talk about those accusations. Let's talk about these text messages that are at the heart of this case that Lindsay sent to her boyfriend, and he in turn sent to his friend, the would-be hitman in the Bahamas, on that pivotal day, July 16th, 2023, when this murder plot was allegedly hatched. Let's talk about if prosecutors have enough evidence or not. Finally, mixed in there, let's talk about Savannah Chrisley. Savannah Chrisley is Robert's famous girlfriend, and she just came out with a podcast episode where she spills the beans about having respect for Lindsay, even though she doesn't say her name ever, about Savannah not being the cause of their divorce. And Savannah is tired of being the bad guy. She doesn't want to be painted as a homewrecker. Savannah talks about not taking Lindsay's place as a mother to their 3 boys. Lindsay is their mom. So we've got a lot to talk about. But first, the Daily Mail. Today is Tuesday, December 5th, and Robert is not pulling any punches when it comes to what a bad wife he claims Lindsay is. She had more than one affair, according to him. DailyMail.com exclusively revealed that Lindsay had more than one affair, and Robert said she would get, quote, loads of money if he died. So Robert is 38, and he's been married to Lindsay for more than 10 years, about a dozen years or more, but now he's claiming that Lindsay sneaked some 18-year-old into their Abaco home in 2022. If you click on the link below to the podcast series to watch this whole series of videos I've created about Lindsay, the cheerleader, her rich husband, and the hitman, you will know that locals in Thomasville, Georgia and beyond have been buzzing about this for months. They've been buzzing about this for months. There have been rumors that Robert had somehow caught Lindsay with some guy in their Bahamas home. Supposedly he caught her by looking at video footage or security cameras, but this is slightly different news coming out in the Daily Mail. And many people assumed Robert caught her with the same guy, Terrence Bethel, that she was caught having an affair with, that bartender who worked at the Grabbers Bar. Well, no, according to this, Terrence was at least the second guy that Lindsay had an affair with. It doesn't go into all the gritty details that we want about Lindsay being caught. Robert supposedly told investigators he uncovered Lindsay's affair somehow through her Apple Watch. We don't know the details of that. He forgave her, I guess, back in 2022. They have 3 boys. I mean, wow, that's a lot. A 37-year-old and an 18-year-old. Ooh. But allegedly, Robert agreed to forgive Lindsay of her indiscretion with that 18-year-old because Robert and Lindsay have 3 young boys. He was going to give it another go. But according to Robert, Lindsay didn't stay faithful. In February of 2023, he uncovered another affair. We know Robert reportedly hired a private investigator, and that's how he found out Lindsay was not being faithful. 37-year-old Lindsay was having an affair with a younger man again. Not an 18-year-old this time, but a man in his 20s, Terrence Bethel. Terrence Bethel is 28, and he was arrested along with his friend, 29-year-old Farron Newbold Jr. So not only was this affair with Terrence uncovered in February, later in this year, a series of text messages were also uncovered, and now we know what the trio, Lindsay, Farron, and Terrence, allegedly were texting one another and how it all began on July 16th. An affair is one thing, or more than one affair is one thing, but once it moves into talk of an alleged murder for hire, that's a whole different ballgame. That's why Lindsay and Terrence and Farron were arrested 1 week after Lindsay had it out with her husband that day, that pivotal day, July 16th, when Robert would not let Lindsay get on the plane, as we discussed, with her boys and with Robert, just so she could jet off to go see her boyfriend. Robert did tell police he was living in fear of Lindsay, 5 foot 3 inches tall, says the Daily Mail. That's what's been uncovered in a 2-page statement from Robert that was delivered along with the indictment to defense lawyers on Friday, December 1st. We know Lindsay and Terrence and Farron appeared in court Friday, December 1st, and we expect them to appear in court again this Friday, December 8th. So now that defense lawyers have this 2-page statement from Robert, we're getting the inside scoop on what the dossier contains. I guess this is the point where a lot of discovery is being turned over, and there are rumors about what it lacks. This can be the downfall or the weakness of this case. The fact that it doesn't talk about a murder weapon, or it doesn't talk about a manner or a cause of death or a method, and it's not talking about, according to the Daily Mail, any specific plans. I think there's no plans, there's no dates, there's no necessarily location, and that kind of lines up with other rumors we're hearing about what the evidence lacked on Friday. But it does reveal the details of the text messages that are at the heart of this matter. Lindsay may dispute this, but previously there was an alleged confession to police where Lindsay did admit she told Terrence that she wanted to kill Robert, and that Terrence reportedly understood and, quote, wanted to kill him also. But Lindsay is also claiming she just expressed those things because she was hurt and angry. We all saw that July 16th body cam footage. Once again, I've linked to it all below if you haven't seen it. She was so hurt and angry because of the events of that day. That's why she was just venting, according to Lindsay.
Before they realized that?
How do you have a homeless guy sleeping in your house and you don't know?
I think this case will all hinge on a matter of how you interpret these upcoming text messages. When Lindsay was asked in the interview, look, did you plot with Terrence and Farron and conspire to kill your husband? She said no. And Lindsay is also claiming that she didn't cheat, claiming her marriage was on the rocks long before. So we don't know if Lindsay is just saying she's separated in her heart from Robert. Does Robert have hard evidence, video proof, Apple Watch proof, screenshots, anything of her alleged cheating? Does Lindsay have any proof? Did Robert ever cheat? I think there are ways to produce hard evidence. Basically, Lindsay is saying she didn't cheat apparently because maybe in her heart the marriage was over long before, it was on the rocks. Just like Savannah is going to talk about, she is not the person who came along and broke up a marriage. Even though they're not technically divorced yet, I can understand Savannah's point of view. She's not some homewrecker who came in and broke up some happy marriage. The text messages that were sent center around the events of the July 16th day. So it helps to know what happened that day when Lindsay was trying to get her happy butt on that plane with Robert and their 3 boys. Robert said no. The cops were called. Lindsay did say Robert gets aggressive with her. She claimed he pushed her out of the way, trying to, get his kids' bags out of her car, out of her black Cadillac, the Black Widow, her Cadillac Escalade. But Lindsay could not provide any proof that I saw. The female cop was asking her if you can provide any video evidence, if you can provide an independent witness, anything like that would help prove Lindsay's case. But Lindsay didn't give them anything except her words. She just kind of stood there like, so it'll always be he said, she said, almost like she was trying to cry. I don't know about that, but obviously, based on these text messages that Terrence sent to his friend, it sounds like Lindsay gave Terrence an earful about what happened that day. It was the same day, July 16th, that the Daily Mail says investigators stumbled onto the text messages because they were investigating the Grabber's Bar break-in from the night before. They say investigators were examining Terrence's phone because, first of all, Terrence was a bartender there at Grabber's Bar, and he was one of the last people on site that night. But here are the exact text messages that the Daily Mail is saying Terrence sent to his friend Farron. I'm going to read them word for word, except instead of the N word, I'm going to say ninja. Quote, "This ninja rolled up on Lindsay and wouldn't let her on the plane, and he put his hands on her. I am about to come out of retirement for this ninja." That's what Terrence reportedly wrote to Farron. Let me do a little Ebonics translation there. Terrence is claiming, this guy rolled up on Lindsay, rolled up on, kind of aggressive, as if Robert rolled up on her and wouldn't let her on the plane. So we know that's true. That part is true. Robert did not let Lindsay on the plane because he didn't want to confuse the children. He didn't want her hopping on the plane for an hour with their boys and then, bye, mommy's going off to see her boyfriend now. So that part is true. But the next part, and he put his hands on her, that means, he put his hands on her, or he put his hands on her in a violent or aggressive way. This could be an exaggeration. We don't have proof that Robert pushed Lindsay out of the way that day. We don't have proof that confirms Robert has ever been violent with Lindsay, as she claims. It may be true, we don't know, we just don't have the evidence. But Lindsay, she's a trip. If you're sitting there texting your boyfriend and you're trying to drum up all this hate for your husband, a younger guy, if he can't already compete with Robert in terms of money, I'm sure Robert has a lot more money than Terrence would working as a bartender. I hate to make assumptions, but that's a big one. Maybe Terrence would need to, feel big and bold and bad and try and feel not like a young guy, but a guy who could protect his older girlfriend and stand up against her husband by saying, "What? That ninja put his hands on you?" Now, for this part, I'm about to come out of retirement for this ninja. What did he mean by that? What was Terrence's old job? What would he come out of retirement for? Only his best friend would truly know that. Now, are they just talking stuff? It's hard to get the tone when you're talking about text messages. It's hard to know when a person's serious. Now, this is where it gets a little more serious. Quote, "He's flying into Baker's Bay," so there is a location. We don't have a time, but he's flying into Baker's Bay. "She is thinking about letting me kill him, but he has the kids." So, whoa, you can't tell a lot about text and tone from that passage, but it doesn't look good. Is it enough to put people away for 60 years? I don't know. I mean, we did get a location there. Lindsay obviously was texting, apparently saying, letting Terrence know Robert's location, the fact that the boys would be with him. He's flying into Baker's Bay, but he has the kids. She's thinking about letting me kill him? Yeah, that's pretty scary. And maybe it would be enough to convict, because you don't necessarily need to talk about a murder weapon. You don't necessarily need to talk about exact times and places. Maybe Terrence knew Robert's routine. Did Robert show up at the bar that night? At Grabber's Bar? We know we've seen that leaked photo of Robert hugged up with some cute little blonde girl or someone. Is it enough? Lindsay wouldn't necessarily have to know the method of operation. She wouldn't want her boys endangered. That could show seriousness of intent at that point to say, she's thinking about letting me kill him, but he'll have the boys with him. Ugh, that's pretty damning. I don't know if it would pass muster in the U.S. or Bahamian law compared to U.S. law. What do you need to show the seriousness of your intent? Do you have to have money exchanged? Do you have to have direct plans exchanged? Some people who put hits out on others, we've seen the undercover footage in so many crime shows where some of them say, I don't want to know how you do it. I don't necessarily want to know when you do it. Keep me out of it. I just want to know it's done. But oftentimes there is an exchange of money. Sometimes it's like $5,000 beforehand, and once it's done, a $5,000 bonus. And you've seen the cops thwart all these murder plots. They'll create all these elaborate photos pretending the hitman went through with it, and pretending the person is gone and seeing the reaction of the person who allegedly hired him. That's only if the would-be hitman had approached police and said, look, I don't really want to do this. But anyway, when cops in the Bahamas reportedly told Robert about this plot once they saw those damning text messages, he called his wife manipulating, and he was wondering, why does she want me out of the picture? And quote, Robert said she had an affair with an 18-year-old about a year ago and came to Abaco and snuck him into my house in Abaco. That's what Robert's statement says. Quote, I found out about it through her Apple Watch, and she convinced me that she wants to be a family, so we tried to make it work. Whew, that's a lot to forgive. It's one thing to find out if your 30-something-year-old, late 30s spouse has had an affair with someone. Wow, if that other person turns out to be an 18-year-old, that's more of a dagger. Kudos to Robert if all of this is true, if he gave her a second chance, and then things fell apart again when he found out, well, she's down there messing around with Terrence, another guy. According to the Daily Mail, Robert accused Lindsay of drinking, making, quote, poor decisions, and falling in with an unpleasant new crowd. Now, we don't hear anything about drug abuse in that statement, not that they've quoted so far, but we did hear those accusations from Lindsay's mother-in-law, Robert's mother, Robert Shiver, in that other body cam footage from earlier, April 30th, if memory serves. There were 911 calls that day. Robert's parents were afraid Lindsay was following them around. She claimed she just wanted to see where her children were.
That myself or Robert would not ever see these kids again. But now, threatening my life, we hope not.
Okay. Well, just so you know, owning a pistol is not illegal. I mean, everybody's got Second Amendment rights. I just needed some background, okay? Because we were rushing over to get to you.
Yes, I mean, my heart's racing 90 to nothing because of the episode. They talked to her last night. She's delusional, and we know that. And her mom and husband, myself, we're all like, you've got to go get some help. You've got to go get some help. You're mental. And she denies it. And then she left the kids this week and went down to the Bahamas. She could have gotten hold of some drugs down there that everybody thinks she's definitely on, but we can't prove it unless we get a hair sample. So if we could get a hair sample and y'all send it off, or if she could get checked out by a doctor right now, they might can find out more that she's been doing these last 4 days in the Bahamas by herself.
Y'all need to call city police about the text, okay? All right. Not a problem at all, man. As far as the threatening text message, I'm sure you heard me, that's going to be a city police issue because y'all live in the city. Okay? Everything else that we dealt with, she did admit to following you, but she was just looking for the kids. As soon as she saw the kids, she told them. The deputy already told her to move on. She's gone. Okay? So you guys can go about your business. Okay? If she's following you or you feel like she's threatening you in any way, from moving forward, you can call 911 again. But with what we have right now, I'm afraid there's nothing we can do. Okay? This whole thing's been documented and recorded, so you ain't got to worry about that. Okay?
She's
we just don't have nothing. We're not
there.
doctors.
She is, right there.
That's not her.
Is that somebody else?
No, that's somebody else.
Make me nervous. I'm a nervous wreck.
This is Robin. That's the complainant right there.
Hey, have y'all talked to your son?
Yes.
Today? Okay. He's got the kids, I guess?
He's bringing them home.
Okay.
From her parents' place.
Yeah. That's what she said, but she was saying she was worried because about 30 minutes ago he said they were coming through Wiggum. And obviously she was worried because he hadn't made it home yet. So, but she said they still live in the same house. Okay. I told her she should go home, and when they get there, they'll be home.
Right.
She thought y'all might have them, that's why she was following them.
She could have called.
Yeah, she showed me on her phone log where she tried to call somebody.
Not me.
She said she tried to call you and her father-in-law, or her sister-in-law maybe. But anyways, either way, I told her not to be following y'all. she has any issues like this, she needs to call us
Did she
before.
have her pistol with her?
No. Oh, well,
You didn't see
I didn't search her car or nothing, but I asked her about it. She said she didn't. But
She's just unstable.
yeah, she was on the phone with her attorney when I pulled up. She was on speakerphone with her, but either way, I told her the custody dispute, we don't have any control over that. But she just wanted to make sure the kids, she knew where the kids were, basically what she told me. But at the same time, she said she saw y'all.
She came
And then
to
y'all
our
called.
neighborhood where my daughter lives.
Okay.
Went circling looking like she's looking for something.
Yeah. Does she live behind your daughter?
Threatened to her mother. She told her mother through a text. You heard what her mother said. You want to tell us what her mother said?
She didn't tell me what the text was, but she said it was threatening, and
Yes.
I asked her where they were at, and I said, look, that's a city issue. They have to report that, okay,
Yeah.
because they live in the city.
Do we have to report that?
No, because who got the text?
She did. The mother
Yeah,
did.
she has to report it,
Okay.
okay? She needs to report it, because here's the thing, if you ain't got a victim, there's no crime. Does that make sense? So she's the victim. She told me it's threatening, and I asked her where she lived and where her daughter lived.
Resident of the subdivision,
They got to
the
call the
uncle,
police.
giving them permission to
Okay.
fish
She
out here.
said
Or deny
it was
that
a
person.
threat. Robin, which is my name, or Robert, neither one.
Yeah,
I'm threatening both of them.
yeah. No, y'all gotta take that over the city.
Like I said, if you have any issues, if she shows up at your house, or if she starts calling you, or texting you directly, or your daughter, well, I guess your daughter lives.
My daughter is autistic as well, so she cannot carry on a communication very well.
Well, if you get any threatening text messages or phone calls, or if she drives by your house, just call us.
Makes me not want to go home though.
Yeah.
She's
Y'all
left.
don't know her. You
Yeah.
don't know her like we
No,
know.
I don't know.
So it's not a good environment. It's a toxic environment, and it's.
Well, I mean,
ready to
considering
blow up.
not just you, but her own mom saying the same thing, I'd be inclined to believe it. You just gotta understand from our perspective, we gotta approach this.
So do we call the city?
Objectively.
We get back home and call the city cops and tell them what's happening and keep a watch on
Y'all
our
live
house
on
and
Meander
their house?
Trace, okay?
Well, we moved in with my daughter who has cancer. She lives right behind Robert and Lindsay. So we were headed to where our big home is up for sale because Robert was going to bring the kids and let us see him because Lindsay was not answering their phone calls all day today. So they thought she killed herself, to be honest, and had taken an overdose or something.
I'd just go home, get in touch with her mom,
Okay?
and if y'all wanna go forth with the city police about that text,
Okay.
y'all can do it together.
Okay. All right. Thank y'all.
Did y'all have
Call 911.
contact with the lawyer and all that stuff? 'Cause this is something good to bring up.
Yeah, we don't, but our son should. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, let him know.
I would make sure I document everything, obviously, and just
Okay.
so they know about it.
Okay. All right. Well, thank y'all for coming, and I'm sorry it was.
Sorry it was taking a minute for us to get there. We were
Woo,
fighting
y'all wouldn't
traffic.
have stopped me.
Yeah.
So,
All right. You have a good one, ma'am.
Mother-in-law started going in and claiming Lindsay was delusional. She was down there hanging out with people. She wanted cops to drug test Lindsay right then and there. But in Robert's statement, he has not mentioned drugs so far that I've seen. But Robert said, quote, "If something were to happen to me, Lindsay would receive loads of money." After all this fallout happened, Lindsay was arrested. She had to spend nearly 3 weeks in that horrible jail in the Bahamas. She should be thankful she got $100,000 bail. The island guys got bonded out too, and so they're all now in the Bahamas. Lindsay has to stay in the Bahamas. She talked about being apart from her boys was the hardest experience of her life. You can't help but wonder, was she thinking about her boys when she was making all these poor decisions? Was she just this lonely stay-at-home mom? That wasn't good enough for her. People are talking about how she's thrown her life away. That wasn't good enough for her, and why not? Did she need all this excitement? Was she trying to relive her cheerleader days? some people do become stuck and emotionally stunted, and they want to go live their glory days. Is that what Lindsay was trying to do? But Lindsay wore her smart white blazer and black pants, as they say, as she came out of the courtroom, once again smiling. As she came out of the Nassau Magistrates Court, smiling. She didn't give a statement to anyone. They all walked pretty casually out. Was she smiling as a result of the lack of evidence presented? That's what I keep wondering. So we'll look forward to the trio appearing this Friday before a Supreme Court judge to enter their pleas. Chances are dollars to donuts, as my mom would say. They are all going to plead not guilty, and they'll have their bail conditions reviewed. And we know, we talked about in the last video, how Lindsay's lawyer is going to try and get her bail conditions changed so that she can leave the Bahamas. I don't know if a judge will agree to that, but we've got to sit back, and this will be a long ride, because reportedly it could take about 3 years for this case to make it through the Bahamian justice system, which is already overcrowded, moving slowly. I don't know if they'll put a rush on it because of all the attention and money and fame involved, but the Daily Mail does touch on and confirm the things that we learned in the previous video from True Crime Mama. Please go follow her on TikTok. She's great. She's getting the inside scoops. The Daily Mail says that Robert did plan on returning to the Bahamas for Thanksgiving Day, but instead he decided to take his 26-year-old girlfriend, Savannah Chrisley, off to Turks and Caicos. Savannah talks about that more. She doesn't mention why their plans got nixed. According to True Crime Mama, lawyers thought it would be a good thing, I guess a sign of good faith or whatever, if Robert would have taken the boys to see Lindsay, maybe a supervised visit or however it might have worked. But 2 days before Thanksgiving, for some reason it got canceled. I don't know why. Robert nixed it. Did the police tell him it wouldn't be a good idea? Is it just not a good look? Did he get a bad feeling? Who knows? But Savannah does talk about how those plans got canceled. She doesn't go into detail about what they were going to do. She's very careful now in talking about Lindsay. She doesn't mention her name or anything, but Savannah did confirm that yes, her and Robert and all the kids did go off to Turks and Caicos, and they stayed in a home owned by Jason and Brittany Aldean. Now, again, Lindsay and Robert's divorce seems like it's going nowhere. I haven't seen any updates. Maybe they'll still have to wait to see how the murder for hire case plays out. But I hope it wouldn't take Robert 3 years to get divorced. My goodness. Now let's move on to this week's episode of Unlocked with Savannah Chrisley. It's linked to below if you want to watch it, so you will know what we're talking about. I had my ears and eyes peeled for any mentions of Robert, and she really goes into it. She's wearing her comfy pajamas and she spills the beans. Savannah was bemoaning the fact that in her relationship with Robert, she can't go to her mom to talk about everyday little issues. Savannah's parents are in prison for frauds. I guess this represents Savannah's first Thanksgiving without her mom and dad. So even though she was with Robert, the relationship is new. He already has kids, obviously. Savannah talked about when her mom met her dad, apparently her dad already had kids. She talks about almost going through the same thing her mom went through, but she doesn't have her mom there. Like when Robert has done something or says something or what have you, Savannah kind of had a mini breakdown because she couldn't just call her mom up and say, oh my goodness, he did this or that. What would you advise? Savannah says since her mom's in prison, obviously, she just has to wait for her mom's call, and hopefully, she's at a point where she can take the call and not busy. Now, we've talked about True Crime Mama being right on the money before Savannah even revealed it. Savannah just published her video today, Tuesday, December 5th, 2023, spilling the beans about her going to Turks and Caicos with Robert and the kids and her siblings and everything they did on Thanksgiving Day, getting a boat and all this stuff. Well, True Crime Mama had spilled that news beforehand, so we know her sources are good. In fact, Savannah delved a little bit more into what they did on Thanksgiving Day. It wasn't a big deal. Thanksgiving in Turks, as she calls it, so it was almost like any other day. She didn't have to pretend. She's not one to sit up there and try and make a turkey. I'm thinking to myself, Lindsay probably was not too happy. I'm sure Lindsay was like building up all this hope to see her boys, and then for some reason 2 days before Thanksgiving the plans got nixed. Was it a power move or was it just a smart move? Anyway, Savannah goes into running into Brittany Aldean 2 days before, being a sweetheart, opening up her home to them and everything. Savannah said, I was never going to talk about my Thanksgiving Day plans. She wasn't going to do it publicly, but she said, obviously this year things look very different for my boyfriend and his kids this year, and their Thanksgiving plans look different. That's how she talks. She doesn't get into the murder plot, saying Lindsay's name out loud, at least not in public, but Savannah did say both of their families did need something different this year. Savannah admitted that Robert was texting her a sweet text early, Thanksgiving Day, 8:28 a.m. It's funny how she remembered the exact time. She said, yeah, the kids were all around, we were together, but he was still texting me because they're not doing these PDAs, public displays of affection, all over each other, I guess, while the kids are there. She said, there's a time and place for stuff and now is not the time. She had apologized to Robert saying, sorry if I'm a bit quiet. Basically, she was missing her mom and her dad. She was just reminiscing like a year ago, she would have been coming downstairs. Her mom would have been doing a big spread for Thanksgiving. Her and her dad would have been eating everything before dinner was even ready. And so it was different. That's why she's talking about holiday grief. Not every holiday being sunshine for people who have lost folks. Her folks are still alive. They're in prison. They're just not with her. But she talked about going out on a boat, loving on each other, just loving on the kids, just enjoying the day. The best as it could be enjoyed under the circumstances. Between them both, basically they have 5 kids. Robert's kids are 3 young boys, and Savannah's younger siblings, a boy and a girl. So in essence, they're coming together almost like 2 single parents, Robert and Savannah. Their whole worlds flipped upside down. And again, I do think they're doing a bit of trauma bonding, but perhaps it's meant to be. I hope it'll last. Like I wrote, I wish her the peace of Christ, her and Robert, because it sounds like, boy, if all this stuff coming out about Lindsay's actions are true, yeah, Robert's been through a lot. But I keep thinking about a previous video from True Crime Mama, and she talks about evidence that was presented Friday in court, and this came out before this Daily Mail article, and she talks about what was lacking.
Happy Sunday, guys. Lindsay Shiver, along with Adrian Bethel and Phalo Newbold, were back in court on Friday, December the 1st. I know you guys have been waiting for this update. And there have been updates already on Good Morning America, I've seen, and some other places. However, they are not giving the full story. So on Friday in court, the prosecution was expected to turn over all of the evidence against these 3 individuals in this alleged murder-for-hire plot against Lindsay's estranged husband, Robert. And while there was some evidence that was turned over, the main evidence, these text messages in question, were not turned over. It is still being confirmed to me that there was never any plot or any plan for these 3 individuals to carry out a hit on Robert Shiver. After speaking with a former prosecutor this weekend, and this is U.S. law, this is not Bahamian law, understand. However, I just want to point this out. This former prosecutor shared with me that in order for a conspiracy to occur, there has to be some sort of overt step taken in order to complete that conspiracy, such as exchange of money, purchasing a firearm, something like that. And sources say that none of that ever happened. Lindsay, Phalo, and Adrian are expected back in court this Friday, where they will be entering their plea.
In essence, we've heard about that kill him text. We've heard about the alleged photo of Robert that Lindsay purportedly sent to her boyfriend or the hitman. True Crime Mama talks about those important text messages being missing. Now, we know we've seen what we read earlier, like, this ninja rolled up on Lindsay. He put hands on her. She's thinking about letting me kill him, blah, blah, blah. I'm coming out of retirement. So obviously those must have been presented in evidence in this dossier or whatever, turned over in discovery on Friday. But I'm wondering, after watching True Crime Mama's video, did they present all the evidence? Did they present any evidence that specifically showed Lindsay texting kill him? Here's his photo. If they're missing that evidence, that could be a problem. And if they're missing it, why are they missing it? If it's true that they're missing evidence, where is it? Are they still waiting on subpoenas? What is happening by now? Obviously, they've presented some evidence. A lot of people can logically see a trail. July 16th, okay, we see the body cam. We see why Lindsay was so angry. Now we're seeing these resulting text messages. We see them talking. We see them plotting. But where did it go from there? Maybe no money needed to be exchanged. Maybe Lindsay's boyfriend would have had his friend perform the job, or he would have performed the job without his friend, or who knows? Or were they just all venting? I've got to give it up to the cops in the Bahamas, though. They did the right thing by investigating the Grabber's Bar robbery, by investigating these text messages, WhatsApp, whatever messages they were, and they did the right thing by warning Robert to get the heck out of Dodge and get his boys to safety. Because you don't want to just fart around and say, oh, did they really mean this? Is this joking? Is this not? Because if the plot had gone forward and Robert would have lost his life to a crazy and vengeful wife, then everyone would have been pointing at the police like, why didn't you prevent this? So thank God the messages were found. I think it's going to be up to a jury to examine all the evidence. You know how we're getting some in fits and starts. We're learning as it goes. We're getting evidence here and there coming out in little pieces, drips and drabs. Are these all the text messages? Where are the rest of them? Will they all be presented? What exactly do they have? And what else do they need to show a jury or convince a jury of this trio's intentions? So meanwhile, Savannah was also showing her regrets. The stuff she said on Nick Viall's podcast before, back in September, when she told the whole world about the guy she was dating. She said, quote, "This guy I'm talking to, his wife just tried to kill him. It's fine. He's a normal person and I love it. It's very, very new." So back in September, she was just trying to gloss over things. You know, she had been caught in photos, paparazzi photos at the airport. It sounds like Savannah doesn't confirm things or, confront things like she talked about until someone else reports on it first. So if someone else is reporting on it, we saw Savannah and Robert Shiver that first time caught at the airport, appearing as if they were traveling together, even though they were trying to play it off like they weren't. Well, then Savannah started talking about it. But now she talks about how she regrets, maybe she does not regret laying it all out on the line back then, but she regrets using humor in that way. She says there's a time and a place for things once again, and she uses humor, I guess, as a defense mechanism. And she was trying to be funny back then, but she knows not to make those mistakes anymore. She knows, innocent until proven guilty in a court of law, however long it takes. But Savannah did say, I want my truth to be heard. That first podcast, I aired it all out. I'm not the cause of Robert's divorce. That's where she stands, firmly 10 toes down. I'm not the cause of Robert's divorce. I did not think she ever was, but she's reading all this press, and I guess some people might be coming at her that way. Maybe they're kind of looking at her like a homewrecker or something. She said that was going on long before I was ever involved. But back then on Nick's podcast, Savannah was saying, yeah, I like the DMs. And she also joked, he's too hot to die. So she was trying to make light of a serious situation. She was explaining how she slid into Robert's DMs. I mean, she probably only heard of Robert once all this murder plot melee came about. And we know Robert was pretty open to taking Facebook friend requests. Women were all over his DMs, so I didn't know that someone, so young and beautiful and famous, I didn't expect her to slide into his DMs. But they might be a match made in heaven, you never know. Savannah doesn't like the narrative that's being painted. Savannah did not talk specifically about what narrative she was coming against, but she did say, I am not their mother. She is their mother. She always calls Lindsay she or mother or whatever. She doesn't say Lindsay's name. And she hesitated when she said, I respect her. Kind of let you know that she doesn't really respect her, but it's the right thing to say. She is their mother. She said that dating someone with kids, it's such a learning curve. But she talks about her great relationship, her great partner, her great friends, everyone that's got Savannah through this year of difficulty. Savannah did say some people are telling her and Robert, you guys just need to focus on your kids. Don't focus, I guess, on dating. Now, granted, Robert isn't divorced yet. I mean, that is a big problem. But I know I give them grace. people, they cling to each other when you're going through a hard time. I mean, who knows how long this divorce will take? I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's God approved. I'm saying I just understand. You know, we're all human, and I understand wanting to fill the gaps, to be there in that loneliness. Again, I think they're trauma bonding. They've been through a lot. They each have younger people they're responsible for, so I guess they're thinking, why not let's do it all together? And that's what Savannah was saying. It's not like she's leaving the kids with a nanny, or you know, Robert's not leaving his kids with others and they're going off and flying off alone around the world. She's like, we're with our kids basically. We're full-time parents, as it were, full-time single parents, as it were. So just like when they traveled to Turks and Caicos, they all went together. Looks like they were on that plane, that Honda jet, that Honda PJ that Lindsay could not get on. Savannah made it on, you know, with all the kids, and why not be all together, having a time, spending time together. She called Robert her friend in terms of, I guess, in front of the kids, the images they're putting up in front of the kids. I could see this could go a million ways. If Lindsay isn't convicted, if she's allowed to come back to the U.S., and if Robert keeps dating Savannah, and the divorce between Lindsay and Robert gets finalized, they are going to have to figure it out. Let's say if Robert goes on to marry Savannah, and if they have a cute little baby whom I've already named Harper Shiver, since she loves the name Harper, Savannah and Lindsay would have to figure it out, just like every first wife and every second wife. All the blended families have to figure it out. So it's smart that Savannah's kind of pulling back because we don't know where this case is going to go. Either way, if Lindsay must stay in the Bahamas, if she's convicted, if she goes off to spend decades in prison, Savannah would more so step into the role if Robert marries her, if it's a long-term relationship. Savannah would step into the role of bonus mom and learn to bond with the boys even more and raise them almost as her own, still leaving that respect like she's doing to say, Lindsay, like she's doing to say she is their mom. So I understand it. But Savannah doesn't like being painted as the bad guy in this situation. She says, I know my place. And she told Robert, she said, finally, one day, I should not have to suffer for you and your ex's inability to be adults and get divorced and do it the right way. And she talks about hiding and humor, but she 100% stands by her significant other. So she's standing by Robert's side. She's trying to say, look, just because you and your ex couldn't get it together and just divorce like normal human beings and not, you know, get all involved in this crazy murderous plot. It's almost as if she's blaming Robert for something too in there, but I can't figure that out yet. She shouldn't have to suffer. Like, her reputation shouldn't have to take a hit because they couldn't figure it out and just get divorced. So let's close with Proverbs 29:26. Many seek the ruler's favor, but justice for man comes from the Lord. So I think that's a great place to end. You know, people want favor from judges, from lawyers, from everyone, but we'll see what the Lord decides. We don't know what justice is in this case. Only God knows their intentions with those text messages. Only the Lord knows if they're strong enough to hold up in court, if it's not enough evidence, if they have more evidence they haven't presented yet. Is it just enough? Is it like the U.S. where the proof has to be evident and the presumption great enough to say, yeah, move forward with this case? Are they, you know, hiding the best evidence to spring on them during the trial? I don't know what's happening. I wish we could watch the trial, but we'll keep posted. And whoa, what do you think about that Daily Mail article? The affair with the 18-year-old, the Apple Watch? Technology, huh? Whew. Anyway, thanks for watching all this. Stay tuned. We'll keep up with the Shiver case and many, many others. Take care.